Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan, and we're getting into Week 12 NFL action. And let's dive right into the Thursday night game. We have the Indianapolis Colts going on the road to play the Houston Texans. Now, a few weeks ago, these teams played in Indy, and Indy won by 7. Indy really dominated on the ground. Really dominated on the ground. I don't think that's going to change. I don't. So Houston's weakness on defense really is their pass defense. They don't have it. But Indy can also hurt them on the ground. I don't really see Houston's defense having much of a factor here. Houston's offense needs to keep pace, and they need to dominate Indy's defense. They can. They're very, very talented, but they didn't show up last week. Now, I understand Baltimore is a much better defense than Indianapolis's, but is Houston's offense good enough to dominate in a game in the way that we've seen, say, Kansas City's, where they dictate the pace so well, all of a sudden their defensive deficiencies aren't as glaring and their defense actually looks decent. We all know it's bad in Kansas City, but their offense is so good, it puts so much pressure on the opposing team to keep up, it tends to pull the opposing team out of their game plan. Now, that's the thing that Houston has the chance to do, and they really need to get to that in order to dictate the pace of games like this. The Chiefs even have problems with teams that can dictate the pace, and the Colts can dictate the pace. They have a dominant offensive line, and their defense complements them really well. Their defense is aggressive at times. It's still a Tampa 2 style. I mean, it's just the most modern incarnation of the same thing that Monty Kiffin and Tony Dungy were doing for years in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it really hasn't changed much. They just need the right personnel to run it, and it's always pretty much effective. They have the right personnel. They have the strong linebacking core, the bend but don't break mentality that you get out of a good defensive line that's not necessarily scary as far as pass rushers are concerned, but they roll out enough people in the rotation and they stay at home and they wait for you to make a mistake. And Houston is mistake prone. Okay, Deshaun Watson tends to hold onto the ball too long. It creates fumbles, it creates sacks, it creates interceptions and injuries. Fuller is hurt-ish as usual, and J.J. Watt was a big blow to this defense. The defense is no longer really very effective. They can be in spurts, but they can't dominate. So I see this as easily Indy's game. Or more so, I should say, their game to lose. Houston has playmakers. They have fantastic playmakers. I wish I would see more out of Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. I wish that we got to see those highlight reel plays like we saw in Week 2 when they took the Saints down to the wire. I mean, that was fantastic, and that offense just hasn't been consistently dominant. They just have spurts, and it's all because of the line. It's 100% because of the line. What they did getting Laramie Tunsil in was great, but then he got hurt, and they just didn't do enough to address the offensive line in order to make this offense as dominant as it needs to be. And considering how much they gave up to get Tunsil, how much do you think they can do to address the line? They're going to get into the playoffs, sure. Houston's very good. But I think they're going to lose this game to Indy. Indy's going to take the division and run with it. You have everybody in this division playing each other this week. So a game like this really, really, really matters for playoff position and divisional win. Because really, you would assume that this division will produce a wild card team because this division is very, very strong, but the record might not work out. The Chiefs are going to win their division. The Raiders are really good, record-wide, at least. They're not necessarily as good as Indy or as Houston or even as Tennessee, but because of their record and because of the tiebreakers they hold, they've got a better shot at getting in than second place from this division. Same with Buffalo. Buffalo's got a really good crack right now because their division's, half really weak. So they've got 4 gimme wins on their schedule, much like, the situation that New England has had to deal with. When you're given that many free wins, it's easy to make the playoffs. So it's going to be hard for the second place team in this division to make it, in spite of being extremely, extremely talented. I would say the top 3 teams in this division are likely all going to be better than the last wild card position that actually makes it. And I don't think they're going to have the record shake out in order for one of these teams to come in. So this game is extremely, extremely important. Again, I think Indianapolis is going to win. I just think they're constructed in a way that can attack the weaknesses that Houston inherently has because of their weak offensive line and their now weaker defensive line. And the playmaking ability from Houston, if they don't jump out in front so early, it takes Indy out of their game plan, they're going to get beat. It's just a matter of the way the team's constructed. So, fantasy football-wise, you definitely want to still start Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins. Garbage time's a thing. And Hopkins still put up points if you're in a PPR league. It's just a matter of if he gets in the end zone. Deshaun Watson, he's probably not going to have the train wreck of a game that he had against Baltimore. Okay, Indy's not that defense. But, there's a formula for this team now. So let's see how well he handles that and if he gets rid of the ball quicker. I'm really interested in this game. It's one of my favorite matchups of the week because they're very evenly matched. But, yeah, again, I just think Indy has it. Their running back, Scarborough, I believe the name is, definitely needs to be picked up by everybody. He just stepped in off the practice squad and was a number 1 running back. So this is the time of the season to make the risk-reward plays. Is it worth the risk, picking this guy up for potential reward, getting yourself into the playoffs, or making the playoffs count? Personally, I think it's a risky move, but it's a good risk to take. If you're dealing with bye weeks especially, you have to pick up a running back anyway. Great. Try this guy out for one of your bottom feeders on the roster, and it might be a really good surprise come playoff time. I've done this in the past when I've won. David Johnson Jr. was a last-second add at the end of the season. Nobody knew what he was. He was just on the bench behind Chris Johnson. And then suddenly, he did enough in the playoffs, fantasy football-wise, for me to win a championship. He came out of nowhere. So this is the time of the season to make those kind of ads. Scarborough might be it for you. Snap him up now. As far as Houston goes, I mean, everybody's already picked up Hyde by now. And that was their earlier in the season, late season ad. So I don't see anything like that from this team. Everybody's pretty much already snapped up. It's just a matter of if you start these guys or if you bench them. As far as the line goes on this game, Houston's 3.5-point favorites. Obviously, I bet Indianapolis because I think they're going to win. 3 points is the home field give for Vegas. So really, neutral field, they think Houston's a half-point better. I wholeheartedly disagree. I just think based off of the way Indianapolis is built, which is extremely, extremely tough up front, they're just going to be able to outlast Houston in these meaningful close games. So that's my take. I mean, keep the conversation going in the comments, guys. I love talking to you guys, and even the ones that just decide to talk trash about my team or what else I've got going on. Whatever, man, come at me. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the comments, the content, and yeah, hit up the rest of my videos for more fantasy football and betting advice.